Father's Day is this weekend, and you can get 20% discount on exclusive Give Me Sport artwork, their own merchandise, and the limited edition Don Carlo t-shirts, plus much, much more. Use the discount code Father's Day 20 or scan the QR code on your screen right now if you fancy buying your dad a nice bit of gear this weekend. Make sure you subscribe to the Football Terrace. It's another episode of Straight Facts. I'm joined as ever on Wednesdays by Jessica Black, and we've got lots to delve into today, absolutely loads. There is the VITINHA offer, £34 million on its way, but is it Arsenal? Is it Manchester United? Who's leading the race for this young, very talented midfield player? Both teams want midfielders. Good price. We're going to delve into that story. Arsenal's rumour also around Raphinha keeps on picking up pace. Liverpool interested, Bayern Munich interested, but now Arsenal Football Club are continually attached to him. We're going to delve into that. I also want to talk a bit more wider scale around the transfers. Bissouma, of course, going to Tottenham. I want to speak to Jess, and we want your take today, the viewers. A lot of outrage from a lot of Arsenal fans in both directions. The one that didn't get him, some like angry at Arsenal fans for wanting him. I want to kind of delve into that and the sort of Arsenal, Man United, and a little bit of Chelsea sort of fan meltdown in relation to their windows not really getting going yet. And other big news on the show today, La Liga have filed a report with UEFA accusing Man City and Paris Saint-Germain of FFP breaches and ask for charges to be filed against them. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at that as well today. Viewers, make sure you're smashing like buttons. Make sure you're subscribing. As mentioned at the top of the show, we are doing a really good deal on Give Me Sport across their range. The artwork, by the way, take a look. You see the Vinicius Jr. artwork on there. There is some amazing stuff. It's absolutely brilliant. Get your dad the best gift possible. Use the link in the description, in the live comment section, or the QR code in the top corner. But Jess, how are you?
It was a really long intro. I forgot that you didn't even say hello to me. It was so long.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to be here. Yeah. The intro is always awkward for some reason because I never know what to say.
Well, one day you'll get to my level. One day, you'll be at blue tick level and it'll be all good.
You guys, Terry bought his blue tick.
Yeah, I got ripped in a space today. I got ripped in a space today because I went into this space and I backed Arsenal in an argument. The Arsenal fans all got me, and the Spurs fans weren't having it. They were like, "Oh, you're only backing Terry because you got a blue tick. You're all simping to Terry." It was funny. Super chat very early on. TJ says, "Hi, Terry and Jess. Just stopping by, showing some support."
TJ.
Thank you, TJ. Josh Smith says, I hope Spurs hijack another target off of Arsenal. And we will get on to that a little bit later on the show. I think it's going to be a spicy one today, especially with the beautiful hot weather we've got right now in the United Kingdom. Hope you're enjoying it. But get the sunblock on, people.
What does the weather have to do with anything?
Everything.
We're inside.
Because in England, when it's a nice day of weather, it's something. That's a whole thing to celebrate. The weather, the whole thing. You celebrate the weather when it's good. Terry has never talked about City in this episode. Not yet. So we're 3 minutes and 52 seconds in, but we will get on to Manchester City.
There's nothing to talk about.
Well, transfer-wise, not so much. But I want to start with this deal that's kind of fluctuated today. So VITINHA is facing an imminent exit, according to some outlets. Yeah. Arsenal, Manchester United chasing him, £34 million. The president of the football club has said they've received a substantial offer today, but they've rejected it because it hasn't met their sort of threshold yet. Who is he? Who is VITINHA? I know he played for Wolves, but who is he? Where's this come from, Jess?
I feel like the Portuguese player, he played for Porto, I think.
He's there now. We just put someone.
Yeah, with Luis Diaz used to play there. That's like the extent to which I know of him. Like I've seen him linked to Liverpool before. Supposedly a really good player. I just seen comps, you guys. Like I'm not about to sit here and act like I know everything about this player. I really don't. 22 years old, looks really good on the ball, a nice looking player. Like either one of Manchester United or Arsenal could probably use this player in their midfield, right? So that's pretty much all I know. And these links have come out kind of out of nowhere, which is interesting to me. But yeah, I think it's more interesting. I mean, how do you feel about it? Because I feel like it's more geared towards Manchester United than Arsenal. Obviously, Arsenal are somewhat interested, but like, do you think that this has something to do with like the Frankie de Jong thing? Because I've seen people kind of say like, instead of going after Frankie de Jong, just stop going after him, go for Vitinha instead. Like, do you think has something to do with that, or what do you think?
Look, I hear your point. Look, I don't know much about this lad at all. When I saw the name, it was you sometimes hear those names and you think to yourself, I know that name, I know that player, and it was
Mhm.
because he was at Wolves. Wolves decided to not trigger a 17 million pound buy option they had on him. By all
Mhm.
accounts, I've read as much as I can today. He's had a good period at Porto, been playing well, doing well in regards to that. But it feels a little bit of a strange link. And I say strange because it's so outside, it's so out of the blue. Now, interestingly with it, there's been talks of a Ten Hag Mendes meeting, the agent Jorge Mendes, for a while.
Mhm.
Vitinha is represented by Jorge Mendes. So for me, sometimes the original story is wrong. The original story was that he's meeting with Mendes because of the Darwin Núñez situation. Maybe they weren't meeting for that reason, but remember that
Mhm.
he also looks after a number of other players that have been connected to Man United. Ruben Neves is a Mendes client as well. He looks after a lot of people. He looks after a hell of a lot of the Portuguese players as well. So I don't know about this deal. I don't
I
know
mean,
enough about him. I'm not slagging him off. I'm not saying he's a bad player. What's frustrated me is, again, all these fake football fans on Twitter that are like, I've been watching this player for ages. He's the baller. I'm like, then where's your tweets about him? Where's your tweets? Where's your videos? Where's your content about this guy? No one's mentioned this guy. He's got such a distinctive name. If people really wanted him at Arsenal, at Man United for the past 3, 6, 9, 12 months, there's no way we wouldn't remember seeing it. Does that make sense?
yeah, and I would just say that like I see these reports come out from Portugal and their publications, or even like Serie A, they always have things coming out. But when the English media isn't really talking about it, I do tend to be a little bit more like, okay, maybe it's not all that it seems. Interest in a player could literally just be contact the agent and see what the terms would be, or contact the club and see what they would want. But like, clubs go have interest in so many players. So they could easily be using, clubs, and like, let's not get it twisted. If you say Manchester United and Arsenal are interested in your player, other people pay attention. So it just feels odd that like, if Manchester United or Arsenal were on the cusp of triggering the release clause for Vitinha, that no English media would be talking about it. That's kind of on my. I just feel like somebody would have caught on by now. Usually I wait for both sides to start talking about it before I get super excited. But equally, there's some interest there, but interest could literally just be, what would it take for you to get here?
The positive thing about it, and I think for either club, and I know from a Man United point of view, we're always linked to the obvious candidates, and it doesn't mean they're bad. Frankie de Jong is an obvious. If he's available, he's an obvious candidate. Bissouma, obvious. Ruben Neves, obvious. Vitinha would be almost one of those kind of left field signings that you're not really expecting your club to go after. And, maybe Ten Hag's been watching him for a while and thinks he is absolutely perfect for what I'm trying to create, what I'm trying to build. So I'm not
Mhm.
against it. I think what I get frustrated with these transfer, I get, that's interesting. For me, it's someone new to learn about. Watch footage of him, research him, read about him. What I get frustrated about is seeing people pretend that they've always known this guy is a baller. He's always been
Mhm.
a baller. I've been watching him. I always buy him on FIFA. Always buy him on Football Manager. No, you don't. You're a liar. You're an absolute lying swine. Pedro here says 17 million buyout, but wanting 40. Am I missing something? So Wolves had a £17 million buy option at the end of the loan move they did. And often that's because the depends how much you're paying of his salary and the initial loan fee you pay. There's normally a negotiation that's done on the buy clause. That also kind of puts me off a little bit. Why did Wolves literally want anybody that's been Portuguese, will be Portuguese, speaks Portuguese, looks Portuguese, wears green and red? They want anyone, and they didn't want to trigger £17 million. So I sort of think, is there something we're missing? Maybe, maybe not. Different manager back then to who's at Wolves now, but it's certainly an intriguing one to me. Comment here says from Jamie, super chat says, I can't see us United getting VITINHA. Pep Linders of Liverpool has been scouting him and Vieira for 3 seasons now. They spoke with his camp in January, according to record. There's an unidentified third club, certain it's Paul. And that could be Liverpool. And Joe, I would say record in Portugal have been spot on with the majority of the Portuguese-related news so far this summer. They've been ahead of the British press by a day or two. And if there is, that's a really good update there, Jamie. I did read about another third club. Again, by the way, if Man United and Arsenal are in for him, and suddenly Liverpool come in, we might as well walk away anyway. there's no point Man United or Liverpool trying to go toe-to-toe. Sorry, Man United or Arsenal trying to go toe-to-toe with Liverpool. It's just not going to happen, in my opinion.
I think more needs to be spoken about of Liverpool shifting their feeder club from like Southampton to Porto and clubs like that in Portugal. Like, it's definitely been a shift, from what they were doing before. Maybe the rest of us need to be looking in Portugal to find some of these talents, because that's what they're doing now.
If you look at Portugal, it was only 4 or 5 years ago, although they won the Euros, you were kind of looking at their squad and it was aging and you're thinking, what's next? And suddenly there's so much talent that's kind of emerged, young, sort of a number of players sort of middle-aged that just suddenly, in terms of footballing middle-aged, that just suddenly sprouted and everything else. And yeah, they've definitely been doing some business at their academies again across Portugal. And they've got a lot of great talent coming out of there right now, which I assume that their nation's very, very excited about. But yeah, listen, Liverpool have also briefed the press, but they're probably not going to sign anybody else in midfield. So it wouldn't surprise.
Which means that they might be about to sign somebody in midfield.
And this is a crazy thing, right? We're going to get onto Bissouma in a bit, but 25s, 30s, 35 millions for players in this era is cheap. That used to buy you that used to buy you the best centre back in the world. That used to buy you the best teenager in the world, 30 odd million.
Yeah.
Now it's buying you decent, like Yuri Tillemans, Bissouma. People are telling me in the comments like VITINHA's really good. I'm going to go with you. I'm not going to assess him because I don't know him. They say he is a really good talent. 35 million is a steal. It's an absolute steal for this, and it's a small risk. Like Man United bought Dan James for 18 million and sold him for 30. There's sell-on value in these players, even if they don't quite work in your team. Afternoon, Mama Flossie. Hope that you are doing very, very well indeed. Another player that's been spoken about a lot, Raphinha waiting for Chelsea, is what the Undertaker here says. But I'm seeing Raphinha, Arsenal, Raphinha, Chelsea, Raphinha staying in the Prem. It really felt like he was going to go to Bayern Munich, but that seems to have really changed now.
Well, yeah, it was Barcelona, I think, was like the main link. He had his heart set on it, but they're having financial issues, which is not really that surprising. They need to sell quite a few players in order to have the money to bring in. I mean, they want to bring in, last time I checked, they want to bring in Koulibaly. They want to bring in Jules Koundé. They have a lot of interest in him as well. They want to bring in Lewandowski. So there's a lot there, that they need to get done. And they could bring in Di Maria on like a very cheap deal instead of bringing in Raphinha. And I think that's kind of where the opportunity is coming in for the Premier League clubs. And realistically, all the money is there. All the money is in the Premier League, and it's all the way down, all the way to from 1 to 6, 7, 8. Like any of those clubs could probably get Raphinha. The wages, the package, all of that. So I'm not surprised to see, Chelsea, Spurs, Arsenal all linked to Raphinha. He would improve all of our teams. And so, yeah, like he's a quality player, 25 years old. Like, who wouldn't want Raphinha?
I agree. And I think there's a few takes on this. Like I look at Man United as an example. I look at Chelsea, and I feel like their squads have the holes in for a player like him, right-sided, in form, Premier League proven, great age. You then kind of look at Liverpool and you think, well, Salah's in that position, but he doesn't look right now like he's signing a new deal. So will Liverpool look to go beyond that? Mane's leaving, and they obviously tried to convince Mane to stay. I don't buy this notion that if Mane did a U-turn and signed a new deal tomorrow, that they'd be gutted. I think Darwin Núñez was a target anyway. If Mane was to leave, they're going to need someone else to come in. It's, and kind of balance things up a little bit. Luis Diaz looks like he's going to take over that left-hand side. Arsenal's the interesting one for me. And I'm talking more so from looking at it from how the fans react. Because what I've kind of seen is, oh, wow. But also, what about Saka? And again, I kind of look at it from a standards point of view of, I care about Saka as an England fan, that he progresses and he produces. As an England fan, I want Arsenal to get someone like Raphinha that pushes Saka to the next level. We need to see whether he can handle competition. We can see whether he can handle the cut and thrust of a top, the dressing room becoming more and more top class. You throw Gabriel Jesus's, Yuri Tillemans, and Raphinha's into that dressing room, everybody's game should raise. Let's see whether it does or not. And I kind of look at Raphinha. I think he could end up at any one of the top 6 clubs, barring Manchester City. I think and probably not Tottenham, as it stands right now. But I think United are probably bottom of the pile. But I think kind of Arsenal, Liverpool, number 1 and number 2. And I actually think Arsenal stand a very good chance of getting him over Liverpool, depending upon what happens with Mo Salah this summer, because there could be an element of, is Mo Salah going to sign a new deal? If Raphinha feels like Mo Salah's getting a new deal, then where are you playing me? Because Darwin Núñez starts because he's this £85 million signing. You've got Luis Diaz plays the other side. If Mo Salah signs a new deal at 300 grand a week, Raphinha's not starting over him regularly. There's a big Twitter debate I was involved in earlier around who's got the biggest draw, Spurs or Arsenal. For fandom, everyone's going to have an opinion, but in reality, circumstances play a huge, huge part in this. And I think Arsenal, if they bid the right amount of money, pay him the right amount of salary, I think you've got a great chance of getting him above some of the other teams. Chelsea, if they come in and go full pelt, that'll be very hard because they have a space. They can guarantee in that first team football. But I think Arsenal would go up a level in attack with a player like Raphinha.
Yeah, I said this on my show yesterday that, I know everybody loves Bukayo Saka, and I do as well. Like, this is not to shade him in any sort of way, but he has so much leverage in terms of his contract negotiations, and we have none. He kind of has the club by the balls right now, and he's 20 years old, and that's not really where Arsenal should be. I know a lot of people are like, well, Raphinha can play off the left. Raphinha is a right winger. That's what he is. Like, he plays off of the right-hand side. Yep. So he would be brought in to have competition or be competition to Bukayo Saka. And I don't know about you, but if you have a player that you really like that's negotiating a new contract and is going to want an arm and a leg and potentially even a release clause in their contract, wouldn't you feel better if you had somebody like Raphinha right there anyway? Would you be as devastated if, let's say, a Man City came in next summer for Bukayo Saka and gave us 100 million, but we already have Raphinha there? That's the kind of situation Arsenal need to be in. So I'm not surprised that we're looking at right wingers, because we can't have Bukayo Saka running us into the ground. Like, he's 20, he's a good player, but like, we shouldn't be afraid for him to jump ship. We should always have a player there ready to take his position. And he's never had any competition. I'm very against the idea of, it being another young player behind him. It needs to be somebody that's better than him, that can push him. Or if Saka can't hack it, then he goes, and that's for every single player. I love Saka, but I would love this deal to happen, even though I think it would be really difficult.
You have to put your club above any one individual player. And it's okay. Like, and I'm not condescending to anybody. When I was a kid, I loved David Beckham. He was from Leytonstone. You know, he had the same, I had curtains like I had curtains. He's my favorite player. I loved him. And I was gutted when he left. But as I become an adult, which he actually left when I was like 17, the older I got, the more I realized I didn't care as much about the individual players as I do the football club. And you're absolutely right in what you're saying about Saka. If Saka's going to be the superstar that Arsenal fans predict, he'll do that irrespective of who you buy, because he'll outperform that player in training and he'll outperform that player in matches. Therefore, he will outshine him. Equally, Saka got run into the ground last season. That's why the last couple of months he faded. It wasn't his ability. It was because he was knackered. And there's parallels at my football club about that as well. Josh Smith here says that personally, I'd swap him Mora plus £30 million. It's a good little take there. Arsenal don't have Champions League. We'll kind of move on to that a little bit later. I don't think in the short term that's so important. Olu here says Terry Raphinha will not be coming to Liverpool. FFG see him as a £30 million max. Leeds want 60 million. Please stop linking us to him. I'm not linking him to you. The media is. We're talking about. So again, remember, the Football Terrace does not do the links. The Football Terrace talks about the news. And I'm sorry to like burst anyone's bubble. Every single fan channel in the world follows this model. They don't have their own news. They may speak to journalists. Like I'm very fortunate to have access to a lot of journalists through Give Me Sport. But it's not my news. The only time I don't share the source is if the person who's giving it to me is like, I don't want my name attached to that yet. And I'm like, sweet, bro, I'll go with it. Like, I've got some Bissouma stuff coming up, mate. And that's mainly because a lot of journalists don't actually want the attention online. It's not about the news not being great. They don't all want the interactions and everything else. They don't even enjoy it. But there we go. I'd rather Anthony over Raphinha, to be honest. See, Anthony's an interesting one because I don't know enough about him again. I've watched him. I've read about him. I know he becomes highly rated, but
I'd be interested to know who Football Matters is, like who they support. It's an interesting take. You know, I mean, if you're a Manchester United fan, yeah, you'd probably want Anthony because you have Ten Hag, right? But like, if you're like an Arsenal fan, you know, you probably want Raphinha because he's played in this league before. Again, we spoke about this. We need players that we know are going to hit the ground running. You know, not the saying that I don't think I rate Anthony very high. He's going to be fine. But for Arsenal, he'd be more of a risk.
TJ, I haven't missed your super chats. I'm just going to come to them when they're more relevant in the show a little bit later, my friend. Gal here says, Jess, stop waffling. I think that's about your Saka comments.
Okay.
I listen. I don't understand where
nothing. He's not saying anything. Gal, you're not actually saying anything. Just stop waffling about, because I'm saying that Bukayo Saka may go. He may have a release clause in his contract. Again, those are reports that have come out that he might want a release clause. So it's not really waffling when it's out there.
This is the strangest thing to me. I remember having this conversation with Man United fans. Again, I brought this up before and I'll bring it up again. It's relevant. KJ is probably watching. KJ didn't want, and a lot of United fans didn't want Haaland because of the development of Greenwood. The irony in that now is crazy, but no one knew what was coming. But the point is, you don't know what's around the corner. Right now, Southgate, by the way, I'm not saying he's the right guy for the job, but Southgate said the other day, a lot of the Man United players currently out the squad are going to have to do a lot of work. So essentially, they're going to have to be amazing for the first 2 or 3 months of the season to go to the World Cup. 2 years ago, if you would have said Judd Bowen and Bukayo Saka of Arsenal and West Ham respectively were going to keep Rashford and Jadon Sancho, and Sancho wasn't even a Man United player back then, out of the England squad, people would have laughed at you. They would have laughed at you. So there is no guarantee that Saka or Martinelli or Smith Rowe go to that next level. Some players stay where they are at 17, 18, 19, 20 and never get any better. Arsenal can't afford to just stand still and hope. You have to keep and continually improve your squad at all times, and it elevates you. And if Saka ends up being on the bench because 2 or 3 players are better than him, that's nothing. If you're a Gunnar and that worries you,
why do you care?
I don't get it. I don't understand. And if Saka is better than Raphinha, then what a player you've got coming off the bench. And someone said this to me earlier, and it's kind of eluding a lot of us at the minute. There's 5 subs next year, and they're talking about 5 subs forever now. It's going to be a forever thing in football. So, well, now you've got 5 subs. You know when people say, "Oh, how's so and so going to play?" Well, you've got 5 subs. It means certain players will probably come on every game at 55, 60 minutes as fresh legs. And it will become more of a tactic. It's going to be, football is going to change with 5 subs on a regular basis now as well. It also means the bigger teams will want big, deep, thick squads, because imagine that 65 minutes, 0-0, team your player is tiring, and you're bringing on 5 stars from your bench. Levels.
Yeah. And I think if you heard my last comments about Saka and you heard Saka's going to leave 100% and, Arteta out, then you weren't listening. Again, like, everything is not roses and butterflies. Like, it just isn't. And we're within that 2-year period of, either we need to progress or those young players are not going to stay. So all I want is for Arsenal to have leverage, because all I really care about is Arsenal. Like, I'm not a part of like Player FC. I don't care about Saka's career more than I care about Arsenal. And he has us by the balls right now. We don't have anybody to compete with him. We kind of have to give him what he wants in order for him to stay. So if you bring in a better player, you have more leverage. If he doesn't sign a contract, you can sit him. And there's no guarantee that he does. I haven't seen anything online that says it's a guarantee that he signs a new contract. So
no doubt about it at all. And you've got a comment here that says, Jess, I get what you're saying regarding Saka, but Pepe was supposed to compete. Well, he was.
Well, Pepe never really adapted to the league. Raphinha already plays for a Premier League team and is playing really well. Like, I don't think Pepe actually was here before Saka actually got introduced into the team. So Pepe wasn't brought in to compete with Saka. He couldn't hack it, and Saka became the right wing because he was crap. So completely different situations, in my opinion.
There we go. Apparently, teams in Europe competing are going to have 3 game a weeks for most of next season due to the fixture congestion from the World Cup. That's also a great. If that's true again, Carter. Firstly, I don't want to hear anyone moaning because all our clubs are about to go traveling around the world, which is obviously tiring, even in first class. Yeah. So I don't want to hear anybody boohooing or moaning come January when players are tired. Keep them in England now. Do your pre-seasons locally. Less traveling, more time to rest. So yeah, I don't want to hear the moaning, but that's another reason why the big teams, the top 6, are going to want that extra players. Of course, Terry, I agree with Terry on this. Of course, mate. As you know, it is what it is. Saka is overrated. He isn't overrated. He's a brilliant player. There is no doubt about it. But everybody needs to be pushed. Everybody needs competition, and everybody needs to be challenged on a regular basis. Saka hasn't reached half the level that Sancho and Foden have reached in their careers so far, despite all being in the same age range, is what Speaking Facts says. Do you think Saka's on the sort of levels of Sancho's and Foden's overall in his career?
Not quite Foden, I don't think. Sancho's an interesting one because Sancho came to the Premier League and kind of struggled, but you could caveat that with all this, situation that going on with Manchester United. But Saka has done better than him in the Premier League. But would Saka go to the Bundesliga and score 20-something goals a season? I think he would. So I think him and Sancho are a lot closer than him and Foden. I think Foden is kind of on a he's closer to the Haaland category than Saka is. So I would say they're not all on the same playing field. But Saka, yeah, we project a lot upon him. Like, there's a lot of he's going to be this, he's going to be that. We'll only know what he's going to be like when he's actually pushed to the limit. Right now, he's our best player. And if a 20-year-old is your best player, you're probably not doing things right. So I would like to see somebody else come in that's not a kid and really push the likes of Martinelli and Saka so we can actually see what they are instead of projecting onto them. And then, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
It's interesting. I get you. Do you know what I think is interesting as well when you look at Saka and Sancho? Saka hasn't got a world-class manager and coach with him yet. Maybe Arteta will grow into that, but he isn't right now. And you saw the difference in Sancho, one moving back to England, but then having the Ollie situation, then going into the Ralph situation. I'd be very interested. I think if you took Bukayo Saka now and put him in Pep Guardiola's squad and vice versa with Sancho, I think you would see, you would, inside a year of the training and the coaching and getting used to them, you'd be talking about the Phil Foden levels. Equally, if you took Phil Foden and put him back into Ollie's team for 2 years, you would not think Phil Foden's as good. You know, there are a lot of people now that are like, questioning João Felix because João Felix numbers, João Felix output, João Felix progression has stalled from what we expected 3 years ago. But he's playing for Diego Simeone, who is, in my opinion, isn't going to train, coach, and teach the style of football that's going to make him flourish. He is, you know, so I think there's that factor that has to come into this. Who is your manager? Who is your coach? What is the style of play? And then who's around you to help elevate you? And I think all those, I think, for instance, with Sancho this year, I think we're going to see a very, very different Sancho in the Premier League to what we saw last year. D's back again. He says, Jess, Saka doesn't have us by the balls. I love the kid, but let's not pretend he's Vinny or Mbappe or Salah. He's done nothing in his career yet. Calm.
But he's that to us.
He's your star boy, no doubt.
Yeah, he's that to us. And like, so at this point, if Saka were to not sign a new deal, the fan base would go into complete and utter meltdown. We all know that. So he does. It's going to take 200,000 pounds per week, I think, to get Saka to, like, I really think we live in like an alternate universe. Like, we haven't seen this before. Like, Robin Van Persie didn't happen. Like, Cesc didn't happen. Like, Alexis didn't happen. I don't know. Like, he does. He's in a very good position, you know, to get exactly what he wants, because there's nobody else in our team that's above him right now. Like, he is our Vinny. He's our Mbappe. So unless you have other players out there that can sit him down, he does have a lot of leverage. You know, I think we live in like this universe where we forgot what's happened in the past. Like, these players, regardless if they're Hale End or not, which I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that are sitting there like, well, he's Hale End. He's Hale End until he really wants to, you know, win trophies and move forward. And so, yeah, I'm not saying he's going to leave right this second, but it would be in Arsenal's best interest to gain some leverage, or at least put ourselves in a position where if Bukayo Saka does not sign a new contract or he wants a release clause, we have a good player there to step in.
At the same time, it works. This is a great comment from Jay that says, from Saka's point of view, it would be risky to sign that contract in the rebuild if they fail. Yeah, of course, if he signs a new 5-year extension and in a year, 18 months' time, Arsenal are completely folded again, the project's failed, and they're all starting again and rebuilding, that is when you could find someone like him wanting to push away. However, bringing in quality like Raphinha, Gabriel Jesus, Yuri Tillemans, stops the failure from actually happening. So it almost, to keep Saka, you need to buy these types of players. You need to make that squad so good that it's a fun and an enjoyable place to train and work and want to get to the top in. Plus, you're winning more football matches. There's no doubt. But viewers, what is your take on that? Would Raphinha be a good buy for Arsenal? Make sure you're smashing that like button for us today as well. We are going to talk a little bit about the Bissouma outrage that's been ensuing across social media the past 24 hours. And the big question, who has more pull? Liverpool or Arsenal? I need to ask Jess.
Jess, you said Spurs or Arsenal?
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what's come off the back of it. But there's a lot of outrage from Arsenal fans. We are talking FFP charges being raised again by La Liga towards Man City and PSG. Before that, though, there's a question that says, Jess, what's your stance on Arteta no fence sitting?
I mean, he has to get Champions League qualification next season. That's my stance. So,
yeah. Let's qualify, no context, qualify or go.
Yeah, qualify or go. And if he starts off poorly in the beginning of the season, like all the excuses that he kind of had this past season they won't wash. So start off poorly, you got to go. Like, that's it. Like, if we're nowhere near it in November, he's got to dip. You know, that's just what it is. So
We'll see what happens. 1975 Jamrock says, Jess, Liverpool's new director of football, Julian Ward, was head of analysts and technical scouting for the Portuguese Football Federation, and Pep Linders knows the league very well. I think that's in relation to the Vitinha offer, which we obviously spoke about at the top of this video.
And Liverpool becoming, Portugal.
But it's interesting that you've noticed that change, but you probably weren't aware of those facts. Does that make sense?
No, I didn't know that. That makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense now.
Wolves are going to be mad.
Yeah, Wolves are raging. They thought they had the inside track on the Portuguese players in the league. They thought it was their thing. They thought it was their thing there. I wanted to ask you, though. So, obviously, Bissouma is going to Tottenham. That's about as nailed on as it can be. It's pretty much done, dusted, and over the line. Medicals are happening tomorrow, I believe. I saw like meltdowns from some Arsenal fans, absolutely incensed that he didn't come because they believed he was going to. There's another camp that are angry that you weren't in for him. And then there are others that are just not, that are sort of like not really bothered. We didn't need him. Tielemans is better. We're going to be okay. We've got El Neni. We've got Partey. It doesn't matter. Firstly, what's your thoughts on Bissouma going to Tottenham? And secondly, I want to get your take on... Actually, we'll just do your take on him first. We'll speak about the other bit afterwards. Like, what's your thoughts on Bissouma to Spurs? Good business? Are you gutted as an Arsenal fan? What are you saying?
Well, everybody that knows me knows I love Bissouma as a player. I think he's excellent. And I think we've spoke about this on the show that I thought he could go to any of the top 6 clubs and fit straight in. So I'm not surprised somebody went for him. And so I do think that, this is a good signing for Spurs. Like, I would never turn around and say, like, I think he's crap or anything like that just because he went to a rival. Absolutely not. Like, this player is so good. He's a specialist CDM. He's one of the best in the league, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people feel that way about Bissouma. And to get him for 20 million or something like that is excellent business. 1 year left on his deal. Obviously, Brighton desperate to sell, not because he's a bad player, but because, they can't afford to lose him for free. So for Spurs to be working on that behind the scenes and to get it done as quickly as they've done, obviously, like, he has to do his medical and all that. I think it's excellent business. So yeah, like, there's not much more to say on that aspect of things. I mean, in terms of the Arsenal part of it, I think even on your show the other day, you said that Arsenal have interest, but he's not top of the list. Like, Tielemans is top of the list. So there's interest there. And there always has been. Last summer, I was like, we have to get Bissouma. Like, this is a good opportunity for us to get him. And we didn't go for him. And so there was always been interest there, but it never really firmed up. And I'm not sure why. I don't know why it didn't firm up, but we had multiple opportunities to get him and we didn't. So, I can see why the fan base is disappointed in that, especially because, reading the comments more and trying to understand what the real issue is I know that it has to do with Spurs and all that kind of stuff. I get that. But I think the bigger issue is that Arsenal fans do feel like our seasons have just kind of fallen apart off of the back of Thomas Partey's injuries. And we don't have anybody in our squad currently that can step into that position. And it's a single point of failure. If Thomas Partey's not there, we're wounded and nobody wants to see that again. So I think it's more about, we need a central defensive midfielder that's not El Neni and not Sambi, because Thomas Partey is going to get injured. And that's when our seasons usually fail. And Bissouma at 20 million for a lot of Arsenal fans feels like it should be attainable. And I think for me, the main issue is not so much about Bissouma. I just feel like we shouldn't have to choose. Arsenal Football Club should not be like, okay, well, we have to prioritize either the attacking 8, which is a priority and should be, because that sits Xhaka on his ass. We don't need Xhaka starting games for Arsenal next season. But the other priority should be central defensive midfielder backup for Thomas Partey. And we shouldn't have to choose, and that's more of the issue, is that Arsenal can never address multiple issues in a window, because we either don't have the funds to do it, or, the business doesn't get done quick enough, or we get the wrong the wrong player. Sambi is a great player, but he was never going to be close enough to Thomas Partey to really make it work. So, and then you have El Neni re-signing and stuff. So, and I just don't think people really ever got over, not getting into the top four and Spurs getting in over us. So that's kind of how I can put it in a nutshell. For me, I just feel like Arsenal should be getting 2 midfielders. We shouldn't have to choose. I don't care if it's Bissouma or not. It would be nice if it had been Bissouma, but we shouldn't be just looking at one midfielder knowing that we have that big glaring hole there in central defensive midfielder when Thomas Partey inevitably gets injured. But we were never really in for Bissouma. I think the way that some Arsenal fans are portraying it. So the idea that how could Arsenal have let this happen, I think is more of just a pride and an ego hit than anything. But I understand why people are upset.
Yeah, I kind of get it. The mixture of upset is crazy. You've got, and I will name people, you've got the likes of Igal that are sort of like, a kind of slagging off Spurs still. It doesn't really matter. You're still behind us. You're still rubbish. You've got the League Gunners that are sort of like, it's outrageous that we weren't in for this brilliant, brilliant player. And then you kind of get others that are sort of in the middle of that as an example. And I kind of look at it from a number of angles. I'm rethinking this all the time. I think Yuri Tielemans is an absolute must, even more so now just for the fans, because you've got to get it over the line. You've kind of got to get it done. You need that player. Tielemans is better than Xhaka. He takes Xhaka out of that team instantly in that position, in the three in midfield. Xhaka then benched as an example. But I then look at the rest. I'd look at Bissouma. Bissouma is better than Xhaka as well. Anything Xhaka can do, I think Bissouma, maybe barring long shots, Bissouma would have been a better player. And at £25 million, there has to be my point would be this. There has to be a method to that madness. And I'm equally as tough on my own club. For Man United to not go in for Bissouma at 25 million, there has to be a plan beyond just Frankie de Jong. It can't just be Frankie de Jong instead of Bissouma, because we need more than one player. And I think that, for me, is the key kind of factor here. On Tottenham, listen, certain Arsenal fans can try and play this down, say what they want about Bissouma. It is a steal, and I don't like to plagiarize. I saw Mark Goldbridge say this, and I agree with him, but I'll always pay homage to the person that said it first, especially somebody who said it first on air before me. Pound for pound, Bissouma to Tottenham could be the best signing of the season. If he has the same impact in that Tottenham midfield as he does almost every game at Brighton, being surrounded by better players, that team could elevate to another level. Because I've seen Bissouma go up against Liverpool's, Chelsea away, and dominate. This guy is a powerhouse, but he's technically gifted as well. He has the best of both worlds. Sometimes you can have powerful players who are a little bit erratic. They don't quite have the passing accuracy. And then sometimes you can have players that can do all the passing, but they're a little bit flimsy, a little bit tired, a little bit kind of weak. And he just has the best. He's an absolute star. And I think Spurs have got a steal here. And what I kind of see from Gooners, especially because it's your rivals, is that we haven't signed no one yet. What's going on with Tielemans? I wanted him. Everyone's got a different kind of angle. There are some Arsenal fans who were so adamant you were getting him, though. I mean, the guys I saw all last summer, oh look, there's an Arsenal shirt on his bed. There's an Arsenal towel in his suitcase. He tweeted something about Arsenal the other day. He loves us.
We don't help ourselves, do we? Like, we make up transfers in our heads, and I do think Bissouma is one of them. So, you know what I mean? I think Bissouma is, please, Man United, do something. I think Bissouma is one of those, but he would have improved our team. Like, he would have improved most teams, like in the top 6. So very good signing. I would also say, like, had we had already signed Tielemans or gotten more of our business done before this happened, I don't think the outrage would be the same. I think a lot of it is just nervousness and not knowing what's going on, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, it's one of those, but
listen, I totally agree, but you are right. You do have this isn't the football terrace Arsenal fans. The football terrace Arsenal fans, the football terrace community do not do this. Proper football fans here on the terrace, everyone watching. I do see some gooners, though. Like Serge Gnabry is a made-up transfer. There is zero credibility to it whatsoever. Last year, you had Bissouma. There was just nothing to it. there was an opinion piece that was put out by a newspaper about Jack Grealish that had Arsenal fans going, "Oh my God, look, we're in for Grealish." I think people have cottoned on to what that particular journalist does now. He does think pieces instead of actual news, but they word it in a way so it sounds like it. As an example, maybe the last line of it tells you it's an opinion piece, but people don't get to the end of articles, especially long ones. It's just a habit people have. There's a number of Arsenal transfers. When you actually look at it, there's one thing you wanting it, and then there's another thing the club not doing it. And then I get the angle should be different. I'm frustrated that my club weren't in for Bissouma, but we never had any major links to him. So I'm not out here trying to hunt down journalists. You said this, you said that. Well, they all said no, it wasn't happening. And it's more so I see those fans get angry at journalists when the journalists go, "No, there's no real interest." And I spoke with Dean Jones today. Won't mind be annoyed with me saying this. I said, look, I'm reading reports that, not reading reports, but I think Bissouma said himself. No, it wasn't. I read reports from Dean Jones that he turned down other teams to join Tottenham. And I was like, I want to know what teams. And I said, was it? I wanted to find out if it was Arsenal. And he basically said Arsenal had a very loose interest in terms of it was a player they were keeping an eye on, but it was never a priority. It was Aston Villa that were the biggest pursuers of him that also put in a big offer that were also trying to sign him. Arsenal didn't make that move. So if you're someone that has been lying to your viewers and telling people 100% you know for facts that Bissouma was a target of Arsenal, not in a month of Sundays was he ever. He just simply said it wasn't.
It's very obvious who our targets are. And like I said this yesterday on my stream, and people they don't listen. I'm not going to capitulate over a player that we weren't actually in for. I can be annoyed that we weren't in for him, like you said, but how could Arsenal have let this happen? It's just not something I can connect with. Now, if we miss out on our number one targets, which everybody know who they are, Gabriel Jesus and Yuri Tielemans, we miss out on those, I will have a meltdown. But a meltdown of the magnitude that I saw yesterday was just one of a very insecure fan base, which I understand where the insecurities come from. But don't ever claim you're a big club again if that's the way you capitulate just because somebody you weren't even really going for went to your rival.
I couldn't agree.
Some people need to erase some of those tweets because it was really, really embarrassing. And what also annoyed me, just sidebar, is then you decide that all of the players that we have are crap. And they're not. I get, El Neni, you can say he's crap, whatever, but Thomas Partey, Sambi, they're not shit. And it's just, you just go too far trying to make your point. Sometimes it just gets childish. Come on.
Well, these were the same TPFs, the toxic positivity fans who only a few months ago were raving about the project, how good the youth were, how good the squad was, the direction they were going in. Now they're crying and having meltdowns. I'm not frustrated that the Gooners are consistent. I saw Turkish say today, we said it yesterday, but I watched it today, that he's getting frustrated because he feels like the transfer window is going to go like other transfer windows. That's actually a very fair and rational thing to say because you don't just judge. It's a bit like, I know you got into some stuff with Arsenal fans about this where you're like, one good window on Twitter recently, one good window doesn't make up for multiple poor windows. That doesn't wipe the slate clean. It's okay, well done, but I want a lot more before I start trusting you. We have some super chats here. Wayne says, Arteta and Edu was never in for Bissouma. That was all the fan base obsession. Like they do every transfer window, obsessed on one player is what Wayne.
The window before last, it was Awar.
Oh, the Awar stuff. It was mad. Yeah, absolutely.
We do it every single window, and it's just calm down.
Joe here says Arteta didn't want a problem child, so-called Aubameyang. We should have gone for him though. Arteta out. I don't know if listen. I know there's a lot of people. I did see a few gooners tweeting out what they thought the case that he's been arrested and charged for is. And look, I'm not going to make any sweeping statements on that. The fact that there's no bail conditions is a suggestion that it isn't as serious as some people have said. It must be this bad. Well, if there's zero bail conditions, that if you've been involved in law at any point, that's an interesting one. Secondly, Spurs would have done serious levels of due diligence, so I wouldn't be worrying about that too much. But we'll see. The Spurs Talk Show. I know you DM'd me today. I followed you back. Thank you for becoming a legend and super fan of the Football Terrace. Our scarves have arrived, by the way. If you're one of our members, you'd have seen the scarves. We posted them on the community page. We will start a process soon, or KJ will, because it's his kind of job to do, getting it sent out to you wherever you are. I know just in time for winter, you have your scarves. But he says here, would you or Jess take Emmanuel Dennis at Arsenal or United? I would have him at Spurs all day as a backup forward. Pound for pound, the best value, Prem-proven striker, more goals than Richarlison from open play, 20 million versus 65. I mean, I think it's a good take.
Well,
I
we
prefer
don't
him
need
to
a backup striker. We need a starter. So Spurs are in a different situation where they probably are looking for backups to back up because they already have Kane and Son. You know, they have good players already. So they're looking for Emmanuel Dennis as somebody like a backup. We need a starter. So as a starter, does Emmanuel Dennis like move me? Not really, you know. So I would say no. Even though he would improve us, I still think we need to go up a level. But a really good player. You know, what do you think?
So again, Man United, slightly different position. We look like we're moving away from chasing a main number 9. So if someone like Emmanuel Dennis is available for 20 million as a backup to Ronaldo, it's a good bit of business. I didn't realize he was available for that level of money. I wouldn't mind a deal like that because it still leaves you, it doesn't eat into the budget too much. If it doesn't really work, you probably still make that back because he's got 2-3 years left on a contract, selling him somewhere else in England, selling him abroad. The following year, I think that actually would be a very good piece of business for Manchester United. And I would take Emmanuel Dennis over Richarlison every single day of the week. I do not think Richarlison is that good at all.
If Spurs were to sign Richarlison, how would you view that transfer? 60 million for Richarlison, you know, because I know if they sign him, a lot of people are going to say that's excellent business. For me, like Richarlison is not worth 60 million. He's a good player, but he's definitely not a 60 million pound player, is he? What do you think?
I look at it this way. I look at it this way. If he goes for that kind of money, he has to be a sensation. 60 million pounds and above, you have to be sensational. You've got to be scoring and assisting 25 to 30 goals across all competitions in a year. You've got to be consistent. I don't know if Richarlison's that player. I feel like nearly every other bit of business Spurs are looking at, I get. Perez is experienced and free. They're looking at Bastoni, who's young and brilliant. They're looking at Jed Spence, who is cheap, but young and technical. Of course, Bissouma, mid-20s, Prem-proven, good footballer, powerful. Richarlison's the only one where I look at it and go, that's a bit of a Spursy deal. It's a little bit, it's like some of the players they bought with the Gareth Bale money as an example. It was like, why are you spending so much on such an average football player? That's how that one feels to me. I feel like there's better value in the market. Emmanuel Dennis being one of them. I mean, they're better off spending 30 million pounds, honestly, on Anthony Martial. Martial will do a better job at Spurs than Richarlison will. He really, really would. Plus, I want to raise some cash. We could buy some players if Spurs come along. But yeah, I don't know. For me, something about Richarlison, I just don't rate him that highly. I just find that he's a little bit too hit and miss for me. Too hit and miss.
Yeah, but I would welcome that signing to Spurs 100%. Would love to miss out on Richarlison. Huge blow to Arsenal, 60 million pounds.
I hear you on that one. I do. Lynn here says, Terry, I saw you going mad about Greenwood, and I'm surprised that you would think United would take that risk. So, Lynn, as I said before, like, I don't judge the Greenwood and the Bissouma situation the same. The reason being is with Greenwood, we saw and heard, for me, substantial evidence. With Bissouma, we don't know anything. So I remain very level-headed, and I think that the alleged victim should be given all the support in the world, taken seriously and listened to. But I equally think that Bissouma should be given the respect as an innocent person until we know what's happened. And I very much, it's the innocent until proven guilty, but without shaming or attacking the alleged victim. And that's my state on that. Until you know what's actually happened, what's been said, it's hard to judge. Now, from a football club point of view, you can do your due diligence. Now, Man United may very well have thought, you know what? We're not even going to go down that road because of everything that's gone on with Mason. because we just don't want the publicity. But equally, it's a very easy thing to get over. You say to Bissouma and his lawyers, we want full disclosure on everything, every element of the accusation, every element of your defense, so we can review it. Until that point, we don't buy you. And I'm sure if Bissouma ain't got nothing to hide, he's going to go, great, have it. If Bissouma knows that he's doing a bit of Adam Johnson and he's banged to rights, he wouldn't give that to, because Spurs wouldn't sign him if this guy's at risk of going down to prison for 3 years. Like, they just wouldn't do it, in my opinion. So I get where you're coming from, Lynn, but I do think both situations are different based on what we know. And it's always about what we know. And even when we know things, sometimes we've all seen a very famous case recently just go through court over slander. We all thought we knew then, and it turned out we didn't. I won't be watching Aquaman 2. Let me just say that now. I didn't really like Aquaman 1, but I definitely won't be watching Aquaman 2. I'm not a big fan of DC. Just can't do it like Marvel. But there we go. Thank you very much for those super chats, people. Make sure that like button has been smashed. Let's get this past 500 while we're live on the air. And I want to say a big thank you to everyone that's been supporting the Terrace so far this year. It's been an amazing year, month-on-month growth, record-breaking months every single month. Subscribers growing all the time. I'm just very, very humbled. We are today running a special offer with our partners at Give Me Sport. Father's Day is approaching. You can get 20% off the merchandise. Some of the Don Carlo t-shirts and the custom-made artwork that we have are absolutely sensational. You'll see there the Vinicius Junior artwork. I'm going to be getting some of that put up in the studio soon and in the studio as well. Some amazing stuff. Scan the QR code on the top right corner of the screen or click on the link in the description below and buy your father the best possible Father's Day present with a 20% discount from GMS and myself, I suppose. It's coming from all of us, you know what I mean? Get it done. I'm going to go on this one and do all my shopping for my dad. I don't think he wants anything on there, but I'm going to get him something anyway. I'm going to buy him a classic, because those pieces of artwork are essentially like classic goals. And they've got a lot. They're actually really quite good. I quite like. I want to get a few. They're like classic goals. An artist has done them. So yeah, if you think that you know someone that would like them, get them ordered. Get them ordered. They're really quite cool, actually. They're really quite cool bits of artwork. But there we go. I wanted to speak before we will do some more transfers in a bit, and I assume you guys are going to have some more questions and whatnot. But from my point of view, there's another allegation today. Man City being accused by La Liga of breaching financial fair play rules and regulations. PSG are also being accused. Do you think this is La Liga again after the Super League failure? You know, the money that the Premier League has, the money that PSG has. Do you think this is more sour grapes from the second best league in the world towards the best league in the world? Or do you think that there could be something in this? Do you feel like they could have found something or seen something that could get the cities and the PSGs into trouble?
I mean, I don't think you could just make things up, you know. So there's probably something that they feel like is somewhat of like a smoking gun or something that they can use. I do think that La Liga feels some type of way about not getting Mbappe or Holland. You know, they really needed to replenish that league with some stars after Messi and Ronaldo leaving. And I mean, a lot of us were pretty sure that they would get at least one, if not both, and they haven't gotten either. And we know how Real Madrid really felt about that Mbappe deal. They were not happy about it. So them kind of going after, not saying it's Real Madrid, but it's probably Real Madrid. Going after Manchester City and PSG, you said, makes some sense. But we've seen kind of this stuff happen before. Nothing ever really happens to these teams. They always have enough money to get out of it, you know, or wiggle out of it. So I wouldn't take this too seriously, like just yet. It never really seems like anything. It never really seems like anything changes with the oil clubs, really.
Yeah, look, there's two sides to this. There's one, I do think it's Real Madrid leading this, and I think Barcelona being in financial, Barcelona being in financial difficulties, Real Madrid missing out on the two best young players in world football in Haaland and Mbappe. They can't handle it. They can't take it. They can't handle the fact that the money's now in England. And listen, Mbappe stayed at PSG, but listen, Real Madrid still got Paul, Tchouaméni, Camavinga. They're looking at Jude Bellingham. They're not dead. They're not finished. They're not dusted. but they know where a lot of the money is, and they want to try and take it away. And look, we know City have done some things in the past. We know there's still investigations going on. But I feel like La Liga and UEFA for a long time have been trying to damage. It isn't just the oil money of Man City, the oil money of Chelsea up until late. I think it's the TV deal money we have as well. And the fact that year on year, Premier League viewership grows, La Liga viewership, even in Spain, regresses. And the fact that that happens, they know that over time, they're going to earn less and less and less money compared to us. And it might only be a handful of millions to begin with, but eventually it will be billions of pounds a year more the Premier League generates, or over a 4 or 5 year period, billions maybe more the Premier League generates compared to La Liga. And they're trying to do everything they can to kind of scarper that. And I think the one thing I'd say that would be a worry for Man City is that I think UEFA will be on the side of La Liga. The great thing for City is, like you've said already, their owners have enough money to buy the best lawyers in the world and tie this up in court for so long that they never really get in trouble. Does that even if they
I'll never forget that video of their lawyers walking in. Like, remember that video? And they had like 12 lawyers. And I was like, yeah, it's done. that's
yeah,
done. Like
12 lawyers of that level, there's no way you're losing. It's in part that's sort of listen, they put OJ's lawyer, they put the Kardashians to shame. But people actually forget this Kardashian father that got OJ off. Like, we're talking 12 of him, like running through that case, sorting it out. Gio here says La Liga are so dumb. They are suing other clubs whilst their two biggest clubs are going close to bankruptcy. The Liga equals hypocrisy. Well, of course it does. This is never about moral. This is what I'd say about it as well. Whether City have done something wrong or not, this isn't about moral grounding, values, fair play. This is about how do we help ourselves out? How do we get ourselves out of a hole? Oh, it's the biggest whataboutism ever. I know we're breaking rules, or I know we've done bad things, but what about them? What about him? What about her? What about that lot over there? Instead of just taking ownership. Now, 110%, I couldn't agree with you more. I feel a little bit sorry for City as well, because they just, whenever they start to do something good, it's like, right, we're going to throw the FFP at them again, you know. Maybe they did break rules, but the rules aren't that strong. You know what I mean? If there's easy loopholes, there's an easy way around the rules. That's life. Do you know what I mean? They hustled their way through it. It's done now. I think people have just got to move on from it. As far they just got to move on now. It's done. It's over. We're not talking about, again, they've not done anything wrong on a heinous level. They're not being accused of atrocities here, you know. And been poisoning local water or anything crazy like that, like a big pharmaceutical company, allegedly. I saw Aaron Brockovich once. It's a good film. Like, they're not doing that. Do you know what I'm saying? People make out like they're this evil force. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to go that deep into it. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit of a crazy one for me. But yeah, they're definitely salty.
Yeah, it's definitely a crime war situation right now, I think, for Man City and PSG. They're just looking over yonder like, guys, let it go. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I won't be sitting around like, what's going to happen? I don't think anything will happen.
I got a question for you. No, I got a question for you, though, outside of this. Who do you think have been the biggest whiners and whingers and moaners so far this transfer window? Man United or Arsenal fans? Who do you think's cried the most?
I think Manchester United fans started crying a lot earlier than Arsenal fans. Because of the Frankie de Jong thing. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
I think the Frankie de Jong thing started it, and then we started the minute that the window opened. You guys have been talking to Frankie de Jong before that. So I think it's the same, like, Arsenal fans are just going to cry. But here's the thing, though, like, even though I do think, like, sometimes Arsenal fans can be super childish when it comes to the transfer window, the reason why we're like that is because we have reason to feel that way, because the transfer windows, like, there were windows like in the past, like, and I think there's a lot of some Arsenal fans that don't remember this because they weren't maybe old enough, but we've been through windows where we've been linked to hella players and got none. Ended up with check at the end of the window. And even before that, we just, as soon as we got to the Emirates, we just stopped spending. You'd be lucky to get one player. So I think there's a lot of scars and a lot of trauma there from Arsenal fans. So a lot of people are on edge. And then there's like a new version of Arsenal fans that are like, well, still have hope. and then there's like the older ones that are like old man shouting at cloud, so I
You
get
digging?
why people
Who
huh?
you talking about? Who you talking about there?
I'm talking about myself because I feel when the transfer window opens, of course there's optimism from me, but it's always underpinned by a level of like distrust and, of course everything's going to go wrong, so uh, Arsenal fans not believing is not just them being irrational. It comes from years and years and years of being um disappointed, so
Yeah.
that's on the club, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree. I think for me, what's interesting is I agree with you, Man United. I think Man United fans have been really weird. Like, I don't understand why there's this kind of notion of, I thought the new regime was going to fix things. It's like, well, it depends on what you mean by fix things. You want stuff fast, but you also don't want us overpaying. So we've not been fast on a couple of these deals, but we're not overpaying. Why don't we close these other players off? Well, because we've got to sell players before we bring them in. Why? Well, because one of the other things that was wrong with the club that you all moaned about is that we had too many deadwood players or players that weren't needed in the dressing room being negative every week, causing problems. So we want to move them all out before we start moving new people in case we can't move them out. Like, there's a balance to this, and in the early parts of the windows, that's what we're trying to do. And I kind of feel like with Man United fans, it doesn't matter what the club does. They're always going to moan like, oh, we don't want Frankie de Jong because he isn't desperate to play for us. Okay, so who else do you want then? Whoever we're linked to, they've got a problem with it. It's got to a point now where I think a lot of the outrage is fake. Oh, we're linked to everybody in the world. Well, we're linked to a lot of players because they're trying to sign a lot of players. Why? Well, you're the same fans that were demanding 10 signings. So if we're going to sign 10, you're going to be linked to at least 40 because it's hard to buy football players when you're in our position. You also say we're a dead club that can't attract anymore. So yes, we're going to be linked to more people. Everything they moan about are the effects of the things they say is wrong with a football club. And it's almost like, I don't understand what you're expecting Ten Hag and this new kind of team to fix 9 years of failure in 3 weeks,
Yeah.
4 weeks. The fact that
And
some of
and
the
there's
people leaving are still there, it's crazy to me. Arsenal one's is a little different. So Arsenal one's a little different, but we'll get onto that. Sorry, what were you going to say?
well, no, there's a correlation I think between the teams that ended the season well and being able to do business quick or seemingly quicker than the teams that maybe didn't have as good of a season or there's question marks around them. And I think there's question marks around Arsenal, Man United, and some slight question marks around Chelsea, not because they're a bad club or anything, but new ownership and things like that, and Lukaku and some of the players that they need to move on. Whereas, of course, Man City and Liverpool can do business quickly. Like they're just in a better situation. I think Spurs also are in a good position. They get the money from their owners, free money, no interest, no nothing. Just here you go, put it into the club. Back in Conte, ending the season on a high, so there's a difference in that. And like I do see in the comments that people are like, well, you're calling Arsenal fans childish that just want better for their club. Wanting better for the club and being distrustful, of some of the things and wanting to see before you start to change your narrative around the club, that's me. And so I understand people like that. What I think is childish is saying things like, as soon as the window opens, we're not going to sign anybody. We never sign anybody, any windows. Like we actually do. It just takes longer. So there's like an extreme that Arsenal fans go to, which it does borderline on childish for me. But I understand where the sentiment's coming from. So I would never say an Arsenal fan is wrong for wanting better. It's like the way you present it, I think.
Yeah,
You know?
I get that, but I think you've got these two groups of fans in both our clubs. You get the ones that want Man United don't have as many of the positive ones yet, but in Arsenal's fan base, there is this like, I have to put a positive spin on everything because that's how I show I'm a great fan. That's how I grow. That's where I get my traction. And you get a lot of these big accounts, and they all tweet the same thing. I've said it before. It's like they're in a group chat. And it's like they're going to release it. It's like a statement to everything that happens surrounding Arsenal or a rival. It's like, what's the response? It's like they put together a group response and then they use, one of those apps that can like change a sentence. They all put the sentence in and they change it to say, so it's a slight variation of the same thing and they all tweet it. That's how it feels. And then you get people that only have one commodity on social media, which is negativity. And Man United fans have loads of them. All they have is being negative. And I was kind of looking, there's a few guys that I follow. who are like, I'm not going to do the player agenda anymore. I'm going to stop speaking about this. I'm going to be more relaxed. I'm going to trust the manager in the process. That lasted about 6-7 days until they realized that when they were being positive, no one was retweeting, no one was liking, no one was commenting on their stuff, no one was joining their spaces, because no one cares about the opinions of these people unless they're slagging their own club off and their own players. Some of them I've now seen in the past week tweet about Rashford and Maguire every day, like slagging them. It could be a Bolton fan slagging off one of these players, and they'll come across it and they'll quote tweet it and bring in Rashford and Maguire, and it's like, oh, so you are back to Player FC then. And do you know why? Because it's the only thing that gives them traction. It's the only thing that gives them that endorphin release in their brain and give them that little buzz to get them through the day. And it's a bit sad to see, really. So I do think amongst all this stuff we look at, there's a percentage from both fan bases that are not being genuine. Whether they're being overly positive or overly negative, it's they're more interested in the interactions that they get than anything else. And listen, we all, I will admit this, every single YouTuber, every single person on Twitter, everybody wants attention. Otherwise, you wouldn't post things publicly. Anyone who makes a public post wants attention. You know, someone that, I don't know if you use Facebook anymore, someone posts, oh, I'm feeling really down today. You message, oh, what's up? Oh, nothing, I'm fine. I don't want any attention. Well, you wouldn't post that publicly unless you wanted people to know that you're so wrong. And I feel like there's nothing wrong with that. I do it. You know what I mean? I post my things, my transfer stories that I get off people via Give Me Sport. You know, the way we post things. Yeah, we want people to come watch. We want interactions. That's why we're growing. And then obviously within it, you've got to have a bit of a personality. People have got to like watching you. But I feel like some people, it's like, oh, the only way anyone ever takes notice of me is if I'm saying something outrageous or if I'm being horrible or if I'm being nasty. And I think that spurns a lot of this on. Does that make sense? It's almost, I wouldn't be shocked if some gooners went with the whole Bissouma news for weeks, knowing it weren't going to happen, just so they could rant at the end of it. Like, it's quite calculated, some of this. Like, they know, they set it up quite early what they're going to do.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, there's always reports on both sides. Like there's reports that are clearly saying that we're making moves towards getting Tielemans and hopefully Gabriel Jesus. Obviously, there's still a ways to go, but there can be all that reports. And I still saw yesterday people say we're not doing anything, that we're not linked to we're not linked to any players. And it's like that's what I say. It's like you're just hyperbolic at this point. I can't hear your point if you're not actually saying real facts. Like, you can be mad about the Bissouma thing, but not lie. If you don't like the links, that's fine. Say that. If you don't like the links, say that. But like, to say we never sign any players, we're always like, we do sign players. If you don't like the links, say that. But like, we will sign somebody this summer. It just may not be as quickly as you want. Yeah. You know,
I saw a guy respond to one of your tweets saying, I don't understand why like our deals haven't happened yet. And it's like, well, because you're not listening to the right journalists. Most journalists that spoke about Arsenal have said, especially Yuri Tielemans is a great example. He needed reconvincing. He needed reconvincing that Arsenal was the right place for him to be. No Champions League football. That takes a little bit of time. But because certain platforms, certain people they follow, no, he's more than happy to join us. He doesn't need reconvincing. It's going to happen. Well, then that's why there's the confusion that it's taking so long, because you're factoring out what the work Arsenal have got to do to get the deal done and over the line. And it takes time because Arsenal and Man United are not the powerhouses we used to be. We've fallen from grace. So lots more work needs to go into it. And if people realize where their club's at, it stops the outrage. A few people are saying, Terry, you guys are talking about Lee Gunner. Listen, if I was talking about Lee Gunner, I'd say Lee's name. I'm not talking about Lee Gunner. Lee Gunner doesn't set things up to be negative in the future. He gives his opinions. He's so open about whether you like him or not is irrelevant. He won't set something up. He won't start, I'm gonna run a whole, we're gonna sign Jack Grealish agenda just so I can rant at the end of it. What he'll say from the start is there's no way we're getting Jack Grealish. We don't have the pool. We don't have the like, he's not negative from the start. He's realistic from the start. But what happens is the TPF see it and go, we're trying to create like a movement here about why we're going to get Xhaka. How dare you stamp all over it? Which is weird, because imagine trying to get a buzz around signing a particular player that your club's not even looking at. It doesn't make sense, because you're gonna lose that debate and argument. But yeah, look, I don't think there's time for Man United fans to be panicking, Arsenal fans to be panicking. Maybe in 5-6 weeks, if there's no signings, you still got the same dead wood. Maybe then start asking questions. Then maybe start asking the questions. But Interestingly, with Man United fans, it's more, well, I've been telling you about the way we're run, If we're suddenly with a new manager not running things right and he's being put on the back foot, please don't go into manager in, manager out conversations. And I also, with the Arteta in crew especially, you lot were on your knees with the mouth wide open for Josh Kroenke 3 or 4 months ago. So surely you're praising the new deal for Arteta because you run so well. I want to hear from you if suddenly the transfer market starts to look a little bit precarious, because you two groups, United and Arsenal, are the weirdest bunch that I've ever come across in my whole life. You know what I mean? It's crazy. 100% that statement was about Lee Gunner. That's not. It just isn't. It's a Lee Gunner is the opposite. Lee Gunner doesn't pretend to be so let me say this again, Anthony. Lee Gunner, you're saying Lee Gunner pretends to be positive so he can be negative later. You're saying that's Lee Gunner. I'm sorry. Mental. One of the most mental comments I've ever had on that's the opposite to Lee Gunner. Super chat here says, to be honest, Terry, United fans are scared that other teams are improving apart from Frankie de Jong. United are not advancing any deal that make we don't have more than 80 million budget. So we're stuck in the same place. So Jay, firstly, I get the frustration, and it's fine to be frustrated. But focus on how badly we run every day, not when it becomes fashionable, firstly. Secondly, we haven't got an £80 million budget. Think about all the things that have gone wrong for us. Woodward saying we can do things in the transfer market nobody else can means everybody ups their prices. Pretend to be poor. If you pretend to be poor, no one ever bothers you for money. As soon as you start saying you got money, your friends and your family, everyone's got their cap out. Can you have some money, please?
Yeah.
Don't do it. So I get the frustration, but keep the energy. If we start failing because we've had a bad summer, don't turn on the manager or the players, turn on the way the club's run, but we never, ever do. And this is exactly what happened under Ralph. We stopped focusing on the club.
Well, do you want to get your pants pulled down by Barcelona? Like, I feel like with something like the Frankie de Jong deal, you kind of have to wait it out. I just feel like fans flip-flop too much. It's like there's certain deals that if you could get it for 20 million less, you kind of do that, especially if you feel like you're in a good position. I feel like Man United, they should feel like they're in a good position. I don't think other teams are really that interested in Frankie de Jong. He has to go. So Barcelona want a lot. You have to kind of wait a little bit. And the bigger transfers take longer, especially when you're not one of the better teams.
And we are in a good position with it. And interestingly, there's been 2 big deals. Haaland was a buyout clause. Easy to do. Darwin Núñez, I would say 70 to 80% of football fans think Liverpool have overpaid. Right now, he might go on to score loads of goals and it looks like a steal, but a lot of people think they've overpaid. If Man United drops 80 million today on De Jong, I guarantee the same negative United fans go, oh, we've blown all the budget on him. Why didn't we negotiate it down? Well, because you mugs didn't want to wait another week. Like, it's just but again, a lot of people, their only real commodity is negativity and drumming up frustration. And I will, after the fact, be annoyed at things, but I can't sit there and get angry and scream and shout now. It's far too early, in my opinion. Terry, please explain to me how there can be toxicity in positivity, but no toxicity in negativity. Also, can you deny it, but you just described Lee Gunner? I didn't describe Lee Gunner. I know Lee Gunner well enough to know he doesn't pretend to be positive about things so he can be negative later. That isn't his model. He just tells you the truth his truth from the beginning, whether it's positive or negative. So it's a very different approach, in my opinion. So, of course, there can be toxicity and negativity. The reason why I make a point about the toxic positivity fans, and just because you're positive about, again, don't be drawn into this notion of just because you're positive means you're toxic. That isn't what I'm referring to. The toxic positivity fans are these guys who they're positive. But if somebody could be positive about, say there's 10 things to be positive about, okay? 10 things at Arsenal. They will turn and switch and be aggressive or passive aggressive to someone that's positive about 9 of those things, but maybe a little bit questionable about questions one of them. How dare you put your head above the precipice and go against the party line? And they become nasty and they target people. You can refer to somebody as being a bit childish and they call it an aggressive attack and they come for you. They're toxic in their positivity if you don't agree with them, and they're quite nasty with it. That's what I'm talking about. So you, my guy, You seem quite positive about Arsenal, and you've been pleasant and nice. You are not one of them. You're only one of those people is if someone says something you disagree with. I'll give you an example of someone who's not one. Kesh, who comes on the terrace. Really positive about lots of areas of Arsenal. But if you disagree with him, he's cool. He's fine with you. He doesn't start going on rampages online, trying to get you cancelled, getting little group chats to come for you. There's a difference between being positive and loving your club and respecting other people's opinions and then going on witch hunts for people when someone just disagrees with an opinion of yours on football. That's the difference for me. The negative guys, the reason I don't make a thing about them being positive, like toxic, is because it's obvious when somebody's being toxic when they're being negative because it's clear to see. But the positive guys, they have this little veil over their faces, like, oh, I'm a nice guy. We're just being positive over here. Yeah, until someone says something you don't agree with, and then you spread rumors on the internet about them. Weirdos. In my opinion, I'd rather complete other deals over Frankie de Jong because Barcelona is costing unrealistic if you consider the scenario of Barcelona. I hear you, but imagine today we sign someone instead, and then in a week's time you can get Frankie de Jong. Sometimes a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And I'm not defending what we're doing. I'm just saying be patient. And
It's
maybe
your number one target too. Like you kind of have to play the game with your number one target. You know,
that's true. You go to the reports that have come out, and people miss these bits in the articles. 3 articles have now said this in the last 3 weeks. When Erik ten Hag was questioned and asked, "Do you want us to renew Pogba's contract?" The answer, it wouldn't have been in these words, but was no. I want us to move for Frankie de Jong. So this has been the approach all along. So again, with some people, they like to moan early, and then it's very safe to moan early. Remember this: you moan early, and it ends up being a bad window. You were one of the first guys. Look how great I am! I knew it. If it goes perfectly well, everyone forgets that you were moaning because everyone's in a good mood. It's a very easy and basic thing to do to be negative from the beginning. It's harder to show a little bit of faith and be a little bit more patient. That's the harder thing to do, especially when you have little wobbles. Like yesterday when Bissouma went, I was sitting there like, I feel really annoyed right now. But you've got to calm down and take stock. You really, really do. Toxic positivity equals cult. They are, yeah, they're cultish. Well, they're cultish.
I think the reason why the top 4 would have hurt no matter what. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like it wouldn't have hurt if this hadn't happened. But I do think like the constant, we're better than everybody. We're like Champions League compilations, talking about other clubs. It did come back to bite a lot of the fans in the butt at the end of the season when we didn't make top 4. And a lot of that pressure, you can say that the negativity can hurt the players, but even like unrealistic expectations as well. There's just I feel it's on both sides. And so with me, it's like not really about the names of each. It's just if everything was positive about Arsenal, we would be meeting our targets. We wouldn't be struggling in transfer windows. We'd be making top 4. Nobody would be questioning it. So clearly everything is not perfect. So we don't need to spin it as if it is. I think it's better to talk about the club in its reality, that there can be a lot of positive things about what we've done, which we've already spoken about, but there's still a long way to go. And we should still put pressure on the manager, Adu, and the owners, because if they start thinking that the fans are happy, they'll rest. They'll rest. So for me, it's like if Arsenal were that good and everything was perfect, we would have probably been in the top 4. Clearly, everything is not perfect.
Well, very well said. Terry, are you part of Lee's Rat Army? I'm off my rocker. I'm not an Arsenal fan, so I'm not part of the Rat Army. But there we go. D says, well explained, Terry. Not a problem, my friend. And it's yeah, I mean, don't always take my tweets overly seriously when I say things. It's 120 odd characters. It's hard to explain things in them, but people seem to do. Best to keep it simple. Just be a fan. Nothing more, nothing less. I couldn't agree with you more. I could not agree with you more. Jay, an absolute pleasure as always. Viewers, big respect for you tuning in today as ever. More content over the next few days. We'll have some transfer updates, Lukaku updates, and a few others coming. We've got the top 6 show tomorrow as well. Rob Blanchett on later on during the week. And as we move into next week, we're going to kind of bring some club shows back as well. Have some nice juicy debates in there as well. Plus, very soon on the terrace, exclusive on our Twitch channel, we are bringing back the club specific podcasts. So that United show, that Arsenal show, that Chelsea show, so on and so forth. That will be coming back weekly on the terrace. And we are going to be running a series of auditions because we're going to be doing a brand new watch-along show next year. Very different from any other watch along anybody else is doing. No one has one like it, but we are going to be running auditions. It's going to be no one that you currently know on the terrace will be a feature on this show. It's going to be brand new people, and we're going to be running a series of auditions for people to try out to come and rep their team. And we're going to look to pick 6 people across the top 6 teams to represent their club on each and every single watch along. So if you're interested, we're going to put out a post really, really soon. We'll get you involved. We'll start running those because we want to get that up and running, of course, by the beginning of the new season. All of that is going to be exclusive on Twitch. So we're very, very excited about that, people. So let us know. Until next time, are we going to make a City show? Yes, we are going to make a City show. We're going to have all 6 of them. We are going to have a City show, 110%. Listen, until next time, my people, take care of yourselves. Jess, pleasure as always. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you meant to respond when someone says that. Thank you.
I don't like intros I don't like either
outros,
of them.
you're bad. People, look after yourselves. Smash the like button before you go, and we'll see you all again.